So, The Acolyte was just cancelled and Outlaws is about to release. It really made me wonder, why? What is the point? Disney keeps doing the exact same thing over and over again and repeating the exact same mistake every single time. And not just from a TV and movie standpoint, but as a whole. What have they been doing with this franchise for the last 12 years? I hear a lot online on what is wrong with Disney in every single show. We all have our opinions, and I'm sure you have yours. But I'm going to tell you this, it doesn't matter. At least not to Disney. When George Lucas sold Star Wars to Disney back in 2012, there was so much optimism and anxiety. Now looking back at it 12 years later, I think it's safe to say both train of thoughts were right. Disney has done some good with Star Wars, but for every good, there's at least twice the amount of bad. That is because Disney is incapable of not making the same mistake. Because they have no idea why Star Wars succeeds or why it fails. They only understand one thing: numbers. I spent a few years of my life in a corporate setting. Once you go about 3 steps up the ladder, away from the customer-facing employees, all that matters to anyone is numbers, data, profits, and how much they can please their boss, and their boss trying to please their boss, all the way up to the very top of the corporate ladder. And because of this, no matter how much someone does work at Disney and cares about the opinions of the customers and the product they're making, they don't really have much say so on what's going to get put out, ultimately, because it's all about that profit numbers. And what Disney's going to see when things like The Acolyte fail is, oh, there was no Luke Skywalker in it. That must be the problem. No matter how much we praise them for something good or scold them for something bad, they're just going to continue doing the same thing over and over again and not understanding why they either succeeded or failed. For example, they're not going to take lessons that they learned from The Acolyte, such as what worked, what was good, and what was bad. They're not going to really look at the reviews and what people are saying about it and what criticisms being leveled at them. They are simply going to look at, this is how much viewership Acolyte made us, this is how much merchandise sales Acolyte made us, and this is how much ad revenue Acolyte made us. When they look at something like The Mandalorian and see why it was successful, what they see is Grogu was cute, that's why we sold a lot in merchandising. That's why Grogu is on the face of current Star Wars merchandising. That's why Luke Skywalker needs to be put into the next show, because Luke Skywalker showing up blew up our viewership on Disney Plus. Because that's how Disney views Star Wars is not really going to evolve. It's going to be stuck in purgatory for a very long time until Disney can figure out how to actually understand the criticism being leveled at them. The way Disney treats the Star Wars franchise since they've acquired it feels almost like they have contempt for it. Back when they first acquired the franchise, they almost immediately gave EA exclusive gaming rights. This decision drew so much criticism back then, and it was rightfully so. Other than trying to provide their players with a sense of pride and accomplishment, EA really didn't do anything with the Star Wars licensing other than make maybe one good game franchise, and the rest of them were just controversies. Don't get me wrong, I really like Fallen Order, and I liked what they eventually did with Battlefront 2, and I do like what they did with Squadrons. But ultimately, they did nothing creative for the franchise as a whole, and they just mostly tried to rehash things that already had came before. And even then, it was fraught with controversy because they just wanted to microtransaction the hell out of everything. But it doesn't really matter because Disney doesn't care about gaming at all. That's very clear to me. Gaming has always been Star Wars' biggest avenue of entertainment outside of the films, and yet Disney chooses to ignore this despite caring so much about the merchandising and making money off of it. Outlaws is a prime example of how Disney doesn't understand what the hell they have. The first open world Star Wars game, Star Wars Galaxies did it first. What are you talking about? Hell, I would even say Star Wars The Old Republic is an open world game, especially by today's standards of open world. And hell, modders created their own open world Star Wars game in Mountain Blade Warband. Ubisoft is doing nothing special here, and Disney doesn't even know the games that they've already had released when they bought the franchise. Again, it feels like sometimes Disney just has contempt for this franchise. Not to mention, despite being the first open world game for Star Wars, Outlaws is such a linear experience. Gone are the days when we got Star Wars games that allowed us to have some influence and agency in the galaxy. KOTOR is one of the most successful Star Wars games and video games of all time. It gave players the ability to create, roleplay, and build their own character while telling a compelling story. Jedi Academy's entire selling point was that you can make your own Jedi. Star Wars The Old Republic generated all this hype because they were telling you how you can make your own character and live your own Star Wars story. Star Wars Galaxy's biggest selling point was that they were going to tell the greatest Star Wars saga ever told. Yours. Ever since Disney acquired the franchise, everything is so scripted and limited in imagination. Hell, the biggest announcement to come out for Star Wars games in the last several years was a KOTOR remake that appears to already be dead in the water. They are still remastering and re-releasing Star Wars games for 20 years ago because they can't come up with anything new. How hard is it to allow players to make our own decisions, make our own characters and ships, and explore the galaxy? It is so frustrating that what is desired is so obvious yet so out of reach. Disney has no idea what we want from Star Wars gaming or TV, and neither do companies like Ubisoft and EA. Star Wars is actually an easy franchise to get right, yet despite the low-hanging fruit, Disney can't seem to grasp it. All Disney knows how to do is keep turning out stuff until someone likes something and they merchandise it to death. This might come out as obvious and cynical, but the thing is that no matter how many times Disney gets it wrong or right, they aren't going to learn from it. We can try voting with our wallets all we want, but it'll always be lost in translation when it comes to Disney. I want Disney to succeed. It's a beloved franchise and I don't want it to die. But the thing is, for me, is that more than the TV shows, more than the movies, Star Wars games are the best way to experience the franchise. Sadly, the future of Star Wars games just looks very bleak right now, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. With all that being said, this has been Java Jawa. I appreciate you taking the time to watch my video. If you liked it, please let me know, and don't forget to subscribe. Have a good rest of your day, and take care.